Hello, my name is Amy Muir and I am the Design Studio Leader for Assist. This studio explores the junction between utilitarian and civic architecture while testing these conditions through the lens of assisted death. Cemeteries inherently are governed by metrics and the utilitarian infrastructure that has been implemented in order to service, access and maintain the necropolis. Faulkner train station opened in 1886 and in 1906 Faulkner Cemetery opened, absorbing into its site the train line and station, a train that provided for the transportation of coffins and mourners, a train station that serviced the city of the dead. As cemeteries have evolved over time, there is an acknowledgement that there is still a requirement to provide for a variety of forms of burial and remembrance. The predominance of the field versus garden, spaces of inclusion, spaces defined by religious boundaries, spaces defined by acknowledgement type. Each cemetery is accompanied by various additional built programs, such as the flower shop, crematorium and chapel. With the introduction of assisted death legislation in Victoria in 2019, Greater Melbourne Cemetery Trust are now in the process of understanding how this might be accommodated within their remit. What is the infrastructure that would define this program? The Design Studio explored the role of the cemetery through the lens of now and the growing requirements associated with death and remembrance. This was balanced with understanding the historical significance of the infrastructure that defines the mechanics of the necropolis and how this might then be exploited in order to define a new appendage to the cemetery. Students reference the following precedents: Saint-Pierre Fermini by Le Corbusier, San Cataldo Cemetery by Aldo Rossi, and Brion Cemetery by Carlo Scarpa. These precedents are understood within their original context and then tested within the context of Faulkner Memorial Park. The precedents are then used to inform the formal and architectural language of the interventions that have been designed. Paul Rudolph's sections are employed as a drawing precedent, defining a universal representation style, allowing for the architecture to rise to the top. This is not about death, this is about infrastructure. An infrastructure that supports a civicness, a civic intervention, a civic responsibility.
The premise of this studio is to investigate the roles and relationships that assisted death has within contemporary architecture. This design intends to impact people's understanding of assisted death by providing a space for acceptance through visual attainment. Drawing on historical site context and design language informed by Carlo Scarpa's Brion Cemetery, architectural moves relating to explicit and implied space, prosthetic landscape, and curated thresholds all contributed to a final design intending to achieve an architectural outcome that grants the civic user a partial vista into the world of patient autonomy, differing burial techniques, grief management, and reflection.
Hi, I'm Katie. I did the assisted design stream this semester, so for mine I was mainly focusing on pulling apart the historical typology that may challenge the borders of each program. So what makes up the facility of assisted death and what is the necessity? So the importance of how landscape and architecture meet and where these in-between relationships occur. By focusing on simple design methods, hallways and natural light are often overlooked design opportunities in medical facilities, or better yet, damage quality of life living in these spaces. So the assisted death facility is not only about a place for individuals passing, but an individual's experience leading up to the passing. Each element plays an architectural role, segmenting with entirely different or other programs. These urban infrastructures may activate the site. A variety of thresholds question where the spaces begin and end, and the in-between create these different scales. And these in-between different boundaries meet and have potential to create new ideas of what a meeting space can be for both the living and the dead. Thank you.
Hey, my name's Santoro, and this semester provided an opportunity to address Western society's refusal to discuss death. and by testing new typologies that challenge and acknowledge the role of civic architecture and the cemetery. My project looked at Aldo Rossi San Cataldo and drew on the role of the train line to become an infrastructure for arrival and departure that acknowledged both the permanence of Faulkner Memorial Park and its continuing change through a living landscape. The space for dying became an appendage to the medical centre as a way of informing the future of this unknown territory, a first step in exploring what the facility is and could be.
Hi, my name is Taylor Walker, and this semester under the framework of cemetery design, I explored the importance of landscape in the hopes of normalising the cemetery through the familiarity of the garden. My intervention looked at Carlos Scarpa's Brion Cemetery, where I observed qualities that aligned with my own ideas of the site. The existing train line and station were absorbed into the site, servicing the City of the Dead, but my project aims to reaffirm this important mode of infrastructure by using the language of formal gardens to develop a botanic garden of conservation and education, servicing the living and giving insight into what could be a shared and supportive experience for those wishing to pass and their loved ones.
As a reimagined analogy, I view the cemetery as the Library of the Dead, a variation of the Acropolis, a space that facilitates individual exploration and community growth. With the introduction of an unprecedented legislation in this country of assisted death, and using precedent ideology to question whether the site's behaving as civic infrastructure and how it can adapt as Faulkner Cemetery approaches perpetuity, I combine the principles of legislation, analogy, and attitudes towards site to compose a new typology with inherent new attitudes towards cemeteries and their role.
My name is Isabella Magliano, and this response looks at the overwhelming support of assisted dying as a new way to view death, dying, and memory. Using Aldo Rosso San Cataldo Cemetery and its intentions in a post-fascist Italy as a precedent, I've continued Faulkner Memorial Park's half spiderweb layout, but inverted, creating a memory of what once was popular, but also introducing a new architectural typology demonstrating the new social and political popularity of assisted dying laws.
Designing an architectural assisted death facility with a strong connection to the landscape became important in so many ways, such as understanding and reflecting. The use of this connection from garden to building creates opportunities to experience more than just a place to die. The strong use of light, form and space with a connection to the landscape influenced my ideas for an assisted death facility, allowing for a beautiful environment to honour life and potentially recreating cemeteries to be a place of celebration.
Hi, this semester I have the opportunity to think about ways assist dying facility from an architect perspective. Referring to some research and precedent Brion Cemetery, I made the site become a space that can save and share the story about assist dying. The story collects from the person who chose this service and can be used to support people who have similar situations, also comfort their family and educate the community. So this facility more focus on the mental health of the patient and their families, than promote the value of assist dying to the community.